But first, our top story today. The Biden administration announced plans to revoke Title 42 next month, which was implemented in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and allows for the rapid expulsion of migrants at the border. Even with Title 42 in place, it's been reported that more than 62,000 illegal immigrants evaded Border Patrol just last month. The Biden administration's current solution for the border crossers? Free smartphones.
Thank you, Jen. First, on immigration, our team in Texas is saying that you guys are starting to give smartphones to border crossers, hoping that they'll use the phones to check in or to be tracked. Which part of that is supposed to deter people from crossing illegally into the states?
Well, I think you, of all people, since you've asked me a range of questions on this topic over time, would recognize that we need to take steps to ensure that we know where individuals are and we can track and we can check in with them.
Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Chuck Fleischmann. He serves on the House Committee on Appropriations and represents Tennessee's 3rd District. Congressman Fleischmann, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Joseph, it's a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
It's great to have you. Now, first, I just want to get your reaction to the comments there from Jen Psaki and the Biden administration's response to immigration by giving people smartphones, apparently as a way to track them.
Well, just when you think that the Biden administration can do a worse job on border security and immigration, they come back and do an even worse job. It's shocking. It's wrong. The repeal of Title 42 is going to be an out-and-out disaster. I had a very good meeting, actually, with the Homeland Security Secretary today, but smartphones, the cost, the Biden administration just doesn't get it. They have no policy. The border, the American people need to know this, Joseph. The border is going to be overrun again. We're talking about 18,000 more per day, starting in about a month. Shocking, wrong, outrageous. Again, Joe Biden's messed up.
Now, Congressman, the Title 42 is a Trump administration policy, but it's also a COVID era policy. Tell us specifically how it was useful at the border.
Absolutely. It's a deterrent from keeping people from coming across. It allows for an expedited, a quicker procedure to get those people basically sent away. And it's a big disincentive. So what does Joe Biden do? He announces through his CDC that he's going to repeal this Title 42, which keeps border crossings down, even though they've been coming across in droves. There's probably about 100,000 people just waiting to come across. Another tool in the toolbox that Joe Biden is throwing away and allowing more illegals just to come across. What we're going to see is about 18,000 more per day coming across. It will overwhelm the system in terms of the logistics, the legal system. What does the administration want to do? Spend more money on logistics to accommodate illegals. It's wrong, it's ridiculous, it's costly, and just another example of how out of touch Joe Biden and this administration is and how harmful their policies are to America.
Now, Congressman, we know the long journey we've all had with COVID. Just this week, even yesterday, in fact, Jen Psaki was making comments about the fact that COVID-19 is not over. And of course, Title 42 is a COVID-19 policy, and much of the justification is we can't have people flooding in if we don't know if they are infected or not. Now, how do we deal with the fact that on one hand, the administration is saying COVID-19 is not over, yet this policy that was put in place to make sure that we aren't letting infected people into the country, we're going to do away with that, even though in some cases, we're still wearing masks on airplanes.
That's exactly right. The Biden administration is consistently wrong. What they do is, if it fits their rhetoric, if it fits their narrative, if it fits their radical left-wing agenda, then they will articulate it. That's what they've done with COVID, with masks, with school closings, with the entire agenda. But If they've got another goal, and their goal is to have basically open porous borders, let's face it, that's what we've seen since Biden has taken over. He's incentivized it. This is another reason to do that. So what do? They turn around and they argue that the world is flat, but they're flat wrong in this instance. It's shocking. The American people should be outraged when we see what this will do. Again, 18,000 a day, unchecked. It's going to be outrageous. It's going to reflood the system, and again, lead to the horrible burdens of illegal immigration and all of the frailties that go with that. We're talking about fentanyl. We're talking about crime. We're talking about hospitals that are already overrun with sick people, including legitimate legal COVID patients. How is our healthcare system going to handle this? What are they going to do? They're going to flood the healthcare system. What is the Biden administration going to do? We found out today. They're going to ask for more money, more taxpayer money, more borrowed money to deal with their failed policies. It's an outrage.
Title 42 was implemented under the Trump administration, but the Biden administration has maintained it, at least in part. Why is now the moment at which they've decided we need to do away with this entirely?
Another great question. Joseph, as you know, I am the ranking member, the highest Republican on the Homeland Security Subcommittee of Appropriations. And for months, we have said that the Trump administration was correct, as they have been about a lot of different things. Title 42 has worked. It's been rapid. It keeps sick people out. It is a deterrent to illegal immigration. So what does the Biden administration do? They see the T for Trump and they run the other way, and they come up with a policy like they've done in Afghanistan, like they've done with other domestic programs, like they've done with energy, and they run the opposite direction because they don't want to give the past administration credit for doing an outstanding job. And what do? They continue, as the Biden administration, to take failed policies and bring them back and back and back. So canceling Title 42 is a huge mistake. We're going to pay for it dearly for decades to come. We're going to pay for it immediately. We're going to have a lot of costs, and we're going to have more chaos at the border. I don't know what this administration is thinking politically. It's going to be another nail in their coffin. The American people do not want this. When they realize what they're going to get, it'll be too late. But I hope people call their representatives and their senators and call the White House and say, keep Title 42 in place. It's a good policy, just like other border policies from the Trump administration were, kept our borders safe, secure, closed. And what happens? Biden takes us in a completely different direction, another failure.
Now, most people watching and listening have never attempted to immigrate to the country through the southern border. So we don't have an understanding of practically what this looks like. Now, Title 42 enabled border control to simply turn people away at the border when they approached the border. Without Title 42, what options do Border Patrol have?
Well, that's another great question. What they're probably going to do is allow these people coming over. Now, bear this in mind. As we speak, well over 100,000 people are waiting to come over. They realize that Joe Biden and his administration are going to do away with Title 42. It's going to be another incentive for illegal immigration. People who have been turned away are going to come back in droves. So bottom line, what we're going to see is them taking advantage of another failed Biden administration border security or lack of border security policy. Title 42 was an effective tool to very swiftly and effectively say, sick people, do not come in. We're going to turn you back if you come from areas that have high COVID rates. It was effective. It works. It still works. And guess what? Joe Biden wants to do away with it. It's going to hurt our country.
We're talking to Congressman Chuck Fleischmann. And Congressman, there's another component of this that I think most of us don't have a great understanding of. And much of the immigration discussion includes claims for asylum. And anyone who approaches the border can make a claim for asylum. And those adjudications take years in most cases to determine if the person is a good candidate for asylum, if we're going to grant asylum. But the difference here, my understanding, and I want you to tell me if I'm right about this or not, is that the current policy allowed Border Patrol to send people back to the country where they are coming from while that determination is made. But once it is revoked, the person who applies for asylum will have the right to remain in the country for the years while that determination is made, and often they just disappear. Am I understanding that situation correctly?
You are at several layers, Joseph, at several levels. The judicial process dealing with illegal immigration. Now, remember this. These are people who are coming into our country illegally. They are not complying with American law as it relates to immigration. We are a nation of laws. They swarm over in droves and come across the border, and then a broken legal system, which does what? It incentivizes illegal immigration, because we know these people will stay. Sometimes it's 6 or 8 years before a court date. And clearly, even many times after there's an adjudication and they say you must go back, these people are not sent back. It's outrageous. They can't find them. They don't show up. What is the Biden administration going to do? They're going to say, well, since the system is backlogged because of their failed policies, they're going to turn around and basically create a new rule to deal with more costs, more officers, more bureaucracies. And what are these bureaucrats going to do? They're going to determine on the front line whether or not it's a verifiable asylum claim. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to let more people in. Why? Because that's what the Biden administration wants to do. It's an open border policy. It's a failure. It's a disgrace to America.
Congressman Fleischmann, when we hear you describe it this way, it seems self-evidently not helpful. But you've had many of conversations with the administration. Had they tried to make an argument for why this is good policy, for why this is good for the country?
They've got a completely different view. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they've had that from the inception. If you recall, during the election, they were telling people to come over. If you speak with the illegals, if you talk to them, what did they say? They were told by coyotes, by criminals, by cartels that Joe Biden and this administration wanted them to come over. Many of the people who were actually sent back said they would have never come but for the rhetoric of Joe Biden saying, please come on over. They actually had T-shirts basically believing that Joe Biden wanted them to do this. Again, for political gain, short-term political gain for his radical left-wing agenda and his minions on the left, Joe Biden promoted this. It's one of the biggest failures in American history.
Congressman?
What hurts me is that this is going to hurt our country for decades to come.
Congressman Fleischmann, we are out of time, but we greatly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay with us. What will